When everything was finalized for the visit, the coalition sent a few ambassadors down to Earth for goodwill, although the exact time of year wasn't scheduled. The first group arrived in June. Earth felt heavier than they had ever experienced, and on the positively enormous moon surrounding Earth and the bigger size of planets they were aware of that would support sentient life, had generated more than a little bit of talk. But other than that, the visit was uneventful. Everyone behaved well around the newcomers, especially the Seagon. Many of the small, hairy Seagon were seen standing beneath the enormous oak trees in front of the embassy, peering up. They seemed to prefer the squat, thick branches of Earth's trees, which were far more imposing than the tall, spindly objects that the Seagon called trees back on their homeworld. The delegation bid farewell to Wonder following numerous discussions regarding relationships, travel permits, and even tourism. All in all, it was a wonderful stay. 4 months later, the delegation made a second visit, this time with a larger group of attendees that included the heads of tourism boards. Of mining firms, it was discovered that Earth had significantly more heavy metals than other worlds supporting sentient life, and discussions about exporting our bounty to the colonized galaxy were initiated. As with their previous trip, the delegation was greeted by Captain Mary Marcus at the airlock. After the welcome and introductions were over, she gave the head ambassadors the opportunity to stay on the command deck and watch the landing, which is very lovely this time around. Most coalition ships weren't meant to go atmospheric, although most human ships were. As the two ambassadors, Seagon and Zetix, landed, she adjusted the forward screens to display exterior vistas, giving the impression that they were gazing out of enormous windows. The ambassadors made courteous noises and sat on the seats adjacent to Captain Marcus's chair. Were anxious as the ship descended through the upper atmosphere, but they were reassured beforehand that this was common and how people landed. Despite this, they thought it was a bit crazy method to return to Earth, so they remained silent. Burst from the clouds, revealing the trees and a landscape blanketed in shades of red, yellow, brown, and gold. It was an amazing sight, especially for those who weren't accustomed to seeing it. When Captain Marcus saw it, she grinned to herself. Her favorite season was usually fall, and it was always pleasant to observe, particularly now that she wasn't as much planet-side. The 4 ambassadors gasped in surprise when they saw how many trees had already lost their leaves. One of the Seagon ambassadors turned to Captain Marcus and asked, "What's happened, Captain? Your trees are dying." As a stress gesture, one of the Zeke ambassadors clapped their wing coverings together. "Captain, you should have informed Colin that your planet is experiencing a massive extinction crisis. We have experts on hand that could help Captain Marcus." "Captain?" I glanced at the ambassadors. They were all rather impressive. "Concerned it's autumn, one of our seasons. This is usual. The trees lose their green color and drop their leaves in preparation for going dormant over the winter. The Seagon stops using their paws to take notes while rapidly taking notes on their pad." Above the tab, and gently raises his head to meet Captain Marcus. This gesture toward the screen is typical. Every year the captain nods in this location, where I grew up. The sights, sounds, and fragrances of fall bring back fond memories for me. It's my favorite season. Eager to share with you a few of our fall customs. They didn't talk after they landed, but as the 2 sea dragons got off the ship, they went to the same oak that they had visited a few months earlier and looked up. The oak was so light that it was almost glowing. Yellow and orange foliage. A little drift of leaves flew about them as the wind gusted and the leaves rustled. As they looked, they turned to face the captain who had strolled up behind them. "This tree is not ill," the captain said with a gentle smile. "A lovely oak that would be lush and green in the springtime." She motioned to the embassies and said, "I think you can eat apples. Cider is a popular beverage, and apple cider donuts are prepared pastries that are widely consumed worldwide. Why don't you try them at this time of year in areas where these kinds of seasons exist?"